This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beat Executive Speaker Series. I'm Dr. Lena Wen, the host, and I'm glad to be here today with Kimberly Powell, the Vice President of Healthcare for NVIDIA. Thank you for joining us today.
You bet, Lena. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, you said before that healthcare is the sector that will probably be more affected by AI than any other aspect. Why is that?
Yeah, I think rather than being affected by, I think it's going to be one of the most important applications of artificial intelligence. As we've experienced of consumers of artificial intelligence, where we have smart camera systems in our homes watching over our safety, this same type of technology can be deployed inside of our healthcare systems, helping with nurses and physicians to have a second pair of eyes, whether it be for patient monitoring, second pair of eyes when they're looking at medical images, so we can potentially find things in patients earlier detection. I mean, there's all through things like when you're having to endure a surgery. These are the most complex and personal and unique experiences that AI can be a shepherd along the way, can be a helpful situation. And so it's one of the most important applications. So not only in healthcare delivery, in fact, the other area that we're very excited about is in drug discovery. For the very first time in history, we're able to represent the world of drugs in a computer. It's really wild to say that, but it's absolutely true. We can now read our DNA. We understand and we can digitize proteins, and we have digital representations of chemicals. And so now when you can represent the world of drugs in a computer, you can start to build models against that representation. You can start to simulate the behaviors and interactions of these. So I think we're going to really see this application have us really accelerate the drug discovery and clinical development of new drugs, as well as transform our ability for patients.
How close are we to having the first AI-designed new drug?
Well, there's many in clinical trials today. And the economics and the time is really quite stunning. Some of the great companies that we work with, Recursion, in silico medicine, they have several drugs in the clinical trial phase, and they've been able to get those drugs into clinical trial in a much, much more compressed amount of time. Now, it's going to take several tries. This is not, AI-discovered drugs is not the panacea. We still have to go through all of the regulatory process to ensure that these drugs are safe in humans. And so we have to do that due diligence. In the next couple of years, I really think we're going to see one of these come out of clinical trials. And I think that's going to really be convincing for the whole industry to say, this is a new way of using computers to take what we call it now today, which is discovery, and maybe turn it more into a design process, right? When you can build software and systems that represent things in a computer, you're moving more into an engineering discipline and designing. And so I think that's going to be a really magical moment, and I'm really encouraged by what's happening in trials and can't wait to see for that first one to get FDA approved.
One of the areas that NVIDIA has invested in is in post-surgical outcomes and helping to make surgery safer. Tell me more about that. How can generative AI improve surgical outcomes?
Yeah, surgery, as I said earlier, is one of the most complicated procedures humans can endure. And in fact, AI and generative AI can facilitate the end-to-end process. For example, here at Health, we worked with the Ottawa Hospital, who does some 80,000 surgeries a year. They wanted to create a patient experience, and they created a digital agent who can answer pre-operative questions for the patient. Oftentimes when you're going to surgery, you have one appointment to prepare you and your healthcare team for that surgery, and it's oftentimes 2 to 6 weeks away from the surgery. And so you come home with a list of instructions that is not always easy to remember, to follow. I mean, you're already having anxiety about this procedure. And so they created a digital health agent that is online 24 hours a day, can be accessed, can answer questions about your surgery. When should I stop eating? When do I need to go into fasting? What medications should I make sure I'm not taking? Does somebody need to come with me and drive me home after? And so that's at the very beginning, even before you get to the surgery room. When you're in the preparatory stages for surgery, we can have digital health agents that are helping the surgeons prepare for that surgery, maybe in practicing, maybe recalling up their previous imaging so they know exactly where spatially in the body they're going to be having the surgery. During surgical delivery, we're working with a lot of the laparoscopy and endoscopy companies where they put in cameras for minimally invasive surgery inside the human body. Here, we can overlay and augment that camera imagery with don't cut here or I saw something there, right? And so that's during surgery. And then post-surgery, you can do a lot to summarize what happened in the surgery automatically because surgeons oftentimes they have to take time out of their day to go recapture that into the electronic health record system. So you really can see agents across the entire end-to-end from pre-op to op to post-op. And so again, this is why healthcare is going to have millions of digital agents that are going to be working on the behalf of both the patients and the doctors.
And I imagine that there could be applications like this in the global context as well.
This technology breakthrough is going to raise all boats for healthcare access. If you think about it, right? We're able to codify the deep expertise and learning of healthcare practice for centuries. The healthcare practice of centuries ago and further into where we're headed, we can now codify that in computers. And we can give that information access, again, both to the patients and to the physicians. There's many amazing medical device companies that are here at Health. In fact, I met one yesterday, Isonic, I believe is the name, and they're creating miniaturized breast ultrasound so we can do earlier detection of breast cancer. And you can only do that by being able to connect that device to artificial intelligence systems that are probably in the cloud, and they can process this imagery and be able to, again, facilitate things like earlier detection. So the capabilities of miniaturizing and cost-reducing medical devices, the ability to give surgeons or healthcare staff kind of superpowers, we're going to be able to raise all boats of healthcare delivery.
Well, as we talk about the exciting potential for AI, there are concerns over privacy, security, bias, for example. Are the existing guardrails that we have enough?
Guardrails is one of the parts of the solution. One of the things that NVIDIA has worked really hard to do is create accessibility of generative AI in a way that it can go where it needs, it can live where it needs to live. For example, we package up these really sophisticated and powerful AI models, and we shrink them up as much as we can so that actually they could be embedded right into the medical device. So therefore, you don't have privacy concerns. Everything that the AI model is doing is right there on the device, for example. And when you get into the systems of privacy and safety of this generative AI, guardrails are absolutely one of the solutions that allows you to build in the ethical part of AI right into the system. Please don't go and answer questions like that. This is a safety area. But the other amazing thing about generative AI that's been in recent development is a new layer in the system, which is called the reasoning layer. And this foundation model is the foundational layer, but it connects to a reasoning layer, which is the ability to ground the model in trusted knowledge. And so this grounding of the model in trusted knowledge, it can really personalize the model with real-time information about perhaps you as a patient. It can ground the model in the policies or guidelines that the regulatory bodies have provided for us. It can call into tools that can facilitate how these models should be operating on a more safe level. So I think we're going to be able to address continuously the ability to make these models and these systems safer and continue privacy. So technology is one way to do that, and we continue to build the building blocks around it.
One of the questions that I've heard companies ask is, how do they know that they're getting their return on investment for AI? How would you answer that? How should people measure their ROI?
Yeah, I love this question, and we've been talking a lot about it this week. In fact, if you think about what generative AI and what a lot of people are calling agents, we think of them as digital humans. Think of it as a digital human that's kind of sitting on your shoulder, It's collaborating with you as a teammate. It's helping you do something perhaps faster so you can do more with your time. It's connecting you with all of the digital information that you need to do your job effectively. And so it's an interesting way to think about this is, for example, in the Ottawa hospital example that I gave you, that agent, when you cancel or have to reschedule a surgery because maybe perhaps the patient forgot and they ate a bagel that morning, and so now they actually can't undergo surgery, that's a $5,000 expense for that surgery. Or in that preoperative appointment, if the patient has already educated themselves, empowered themselves with a whole bunch of information, they can have a much more truncated time with that highly demand nurse that they're sitting with that is operating for them. So in 80,000 surgeries a year, maybe instead of 2 hours, it's 1 hour, and you're getting 80,000 hours of nurse time back for the patients who need it the most. And so that's the way we should be thinking about the ROI is you're hiring these digital humans to help facilitate and be digital teammates with your employees and with your healthcare staff. But in doing so, you're probably making them 10 times more valuable or effective at the work that they need to be doing.
I appreciate it. Thank you for explaining all of this to us and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom here at The Beat.
Thank you, Lena. Pleasure.
Thank you, Kimberly.
This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945.